You can cheat death in Dragon Dogma 2 in many different ways. I want to tell you how to avoid Dragon's Plague and go over way more mistakes and tricks that are handy to know about, starting with selling items. Because the gold you get for a particular item depends on where you sell it. Like for example, ripened fruit can be sold for way more in Batal, as fruit is way less common there versus Vermont. If you for example sell them in Fernworth, you only get 35 gold, but if you sell that same item in Bak Batal, you get 10 times the amount, 350 gold. But it's also the case for valuables, like Jaspers sell for 800 in Vermont, but 2800 in Batal, because they are more rare there. And it's by the way the other way around as well. The Onyx sell for 800 in Batal, but for 2400 gold in Vermont. So smart to keep that in mind when selling items to get the most money for it. And the shop at the Volcanic Islands, by the way, also counts as Batal. And if you got a tiger eye, they can better hold on to them and sell them at the Elven settlement over here on the map, because then you can get 2700 for one of those. And don't make the mistake of skipping this area, especially if you deal magic damage, because the Elven blacksmith increases the magic damage for items that you upgrade there. Now you first have to understand their language by hiring a pawn that understands it. We did a video on this with way more amazing items you don't want to miss. If you are curious, link to that in the video description. And a small interesting thing I wanted to quickly mention has to do with the scrap store in the checkpoint rest town over here on the map. It namely also has a special finds inventory. Basically a lost and found section for if you dropped items in the game or just forgot about them. But also if you accidentally sold quest items, they will show up here after a few in-game days, so you can rebuy them. Now don't make the mistake of gifting them to other pawns, as they don't seem to show up in the special finds section of this shop. Yes, I said you could cheat death, and it's pretty easy. When you are in a fight and lose all your HP, immediately go to your inventory and use a healing item. This will namely give you your health back, and if you then go back into the game, you will get back up. So you basically survived a fatal hit without using a wake stone, which also makes healing potions way better. Now we sadly could not get this to work for fall damage, but there is luckily a different trick you can do to negate this completely. So simply throw your pawn down and then quickly follow them. Then the pawn will namely catch you in their arms, and that completely negates the fall damage. Now of course your pawn won't survive every fall just like you, but if you use the remedy arrow from the magic archer, you can revive them from afar and then jump, and they will then catch you, so now the fall damage is negated for longer falls as well, which is great. And shout out to Prizza for highlighting this tactic, and if you don't have the magic archer yet, we made a video on how to unlock it. A link to that in the video description. The thief can also do some really cool things. We namely had Marksmod in the comments noting that they stole the amazing Deadringer spear from the Drake in Melv. This one of course shows up after doing the monster calling mission for Brent in Fernworth and ends up giving you the mystic spear hand. But this amazing spear is of course a drop from the Drake if you kill him, but with the bump and lift core skill you can steal items from the enemy's loot pool, so including amazing weapons they can drop, but also resources, like I got the worm's life crystals while attacking a Drake before taking it out, and that was great because it decided to flee when it was low health. The thief also has some extra mobility you might not be aware of, and this thanks to the concussive leap that you can use to move away from a target, but also outside of combat to for example reach a Seeker's token that is higher up. You can even combine it with the Skull Splitter to for example jump to the other side of a broken bridge if you time it right. And you can of course also use these skills with the Warfarer by switching to the daggers. So when I'm just exploring, I make sure I have these abilities active to more easily reach certain spots. Now when exploring, weight management is of course really important in Dragon Dogma 2, and there are many tricks to make sure that you do not hurt your stamina with a full inventory. One thing is of course storing all the upgrade materials every chance you get, as these can be used from your storage when going to a blacksmith, so no need to carry them. Only the special Dragon Forged blacksmith I went more in depth on in my game-changing items video, leave a link to that in the video description. Like for that you need the worm's life crystals, and those actually have to be in your inventory. But also giving your pawns a lot of items is smart to split the load, although good to at least keep the wake stones in your own inventory, because if you die when your pawns carry the the wake stones, you cannot use them yourself. And there are other nice tips in regards to inventory management. When a support pawn namely dies, so is removed from your party, all the non-equipment items they were carrying will automatically be sent to your storage. So you can help them a bit as well by throwing them in the water, so they are immediately removed from your group, and then bam, everything they carried will then be in your storage. Or you can of course go for the more polite approach and just talk to them to dismiss them, which will have the same effect. So smart to give a lot of crafting materials, but also ripe food and aged meat to your pawns if you don't need it during your current adventure. And then dismiss the pawn so you can pick up the food later and it will remain in the perfect state, because food namely does not age in your storage. And actually having a house has more benefits than you might think. It of course has a storage, but also a bed where you can rest for free. And this has the same perks as sleeping at an inn. So when you for example load your lost inn rest, you will instead wake up at your house. And when waking up, your pawn will also report back from their adventures beyond the rift and also give you the gifts that you might have gotten from other players. Like, it's smart to sometimes rest at your house or an inn to get an update on that, as this will also give you RC that you can use yourself to recruit other pawns. And Dragon's Plague actually triggered for me once while I was sleeping in my house. So when I walked outside, I would see a dead body, but after resting in the house for a day and a half, every NPC would have already respawned. I did not have any other issues, so I'm not 100% sure, but it does seem that having Dragon's Plague in your house might be less of an issue. Now, I also had this once at an inn, and then all the NPCs in that village were gone, including vendors and quest targets. Now, luckily, most NPCs do respawn if you rest for a long time, but it's still best to try and avoid this. So there are some signs that reveal that a pawn is possessed. For one, they will sometimes say dialogue like this.
It is difficult to explain, but I feel as if I am possessed of a greater power.
So then you know, okay, something is wrong, smart to pay attention to it. They will also out of nowhere remove their helmet, and this probably so you can see the red eyes they will have when they have the illness. So smart to give your pawns more prominent headgear so you more easily spot it when they remove it, and then of course you can check their eyes. So if you think a pawn has the illness, then throw them in the water to cure them. Goodbye, Aloy. And then just go to a Riftstone to bring them back. And for me this by the way worked also for support pawns. I chose Sif, who had the red eyes, in the water and then went back to recruit him, which removed the illness. But with support pawns it might still be safer to just pick a different support pawn for the time being. Another pro tip, if you are on PlayStation 5 and have PS Plus, upload your save to the cloud before resting at an inn or sleeping in your house. If the Dragon's Plague then occurs, you can always download the save you just put in the cloud and then cure that pawn of the disease before sleeping at an inn or your house again. And don't sleep on the advanced search feature at the settlement riftstones, by the way. If you are ever stuck at a quest, for example, just search for a pawn who can serve as a guide for that current quest. And then use the go command after recruiting them, and then the pawn will guide you to the quest location. Also smart to often refresh your support pawns, as they won't of course level while they stay in your party. So smart to often refresh them by dismissing them and then checking the previously hired pawn function in the search tab to re-recruit the ones that you liked, and now you'll have the improved version. But sometimes it can actually be smart to not use any support pawns, because this will actually increase your XP gains. If it's just you and your main pawn, you get around the 10% extra XP per kill, and if you're killing enemies on your own, you get a 20% XP increase, with the discipline reward being higher as well. Now this does not look like a lot, but in combination with Medusa her bow, this can speed things up significantly. Like, I now get 34,000 from killing a Drake. Want to know how? Well, then totally check my video on that weapon and way more game-changing items by clicking on the screen. Subscribe for way more Dragon Dogma 2 content. A like would really help me out, and I will speak to you very soon. Goodbye.